3, 2, 1, go.
To the Triad of the Fours podcast, a podcast from 3 Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is season 3, and today we have an awesome episode talking about the amazing Andor launch event, a first reaction review of those first 3 episodes, spoiler-free, and we're going to talk about also the situation in Puerto Rico right now after the passing of Hurricane Fiona. But before we get to that, we want to welcome back to our channel, Alden Díaz from Ahch-To Radio. We always love having you over. Thank you so much for coming back.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome.
There's a list of people in my phone that when I see the text message, I get happy instead of going, oh, stop texting me. But then I say, oh, it's Goose. Okay, never mind.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then
it was interesting because today to send you the link for today's recording. I was going through Twitter and all of a sudden I start scrolling and I was like, Jesus Christ, why is Alden so buried in the end? It's like, because
we exchange numbers
all the time.
Yeah. It's a completely different, and sometimes you end up having conversations on both multi-platform. Yeah. It's a mess, but
Instagram, Twitter, text messaging, in person. It's like, wait,
in person? I miss y'all.
Oh my God.
Well, this is a hot minute.
it's oh my God, a hot lots of minutes, because first obviously we had Star Wars Celebration where which
I couldn't go to.
Sadly, and you were dearly missed. And actually, that might have been a silver lining because you created so much expectation for your appearance at the launch event that you were beloved. I heard from Kathleen Kennedy
went
herself.
In this order: Andor, and then above Andor, Nani.
Yes. It was
that guy. I've seen him.
It was a thing. It was a thing to behold.
It was. People were really excited. It was a great crew. Really a great crew at the premiere.
It was so good to finally meet all of you. Honestly, beyond the box. It's
beyond the box. Yeah.
It's so amazing. It was so great. It is a really good group of people. People who actually enjoy Star Wars and are happy about it and I get excited. And if you're going to criticize, it's constructive. And wow, it's so strange, right?
And
also fans
also
being able to be friends too,
and also just cool people, right? Because it's like you can love Star Wars and still be a scumbag, but thankfully
that's true.
Everybody was so cool and and lovely, and we'll shout them out later when we talk about the launch event in a little more detail. But first, obviously, there's something that's unfortunate that we have to talk about, and we hate to talk about it, but climate change, and we are in hurricane season, and these things unfortunately do happen. Puerto Rico, was hit by a hurricane, or it's going to be Wednesday when this episode's released. So on Monday was hit by a hurricane, or between Sunday and Monday.
Monday.
It was hit by a hurricane, which it was interesting because before flying back in to meet the Chicago 9 of Puerto Rico, we were talking there's a tropical storm heading there, so just be safe. But this little, it'll be fine. It's just a tropical storm. What's the worst that could happen? And and then I didn't knock on wood, and the worst happened. So I'm not saying it's my fault. It's climate change's fault and the government. And it was very, very bad. It's still going on, obviously, and it's not over. But I mean, I don't want to talk too much about it because I've been, I haven't been there. So now, why don't you tell us a little bit of what your experience has been, what has been going on there? Give us your boots on the ground perspective here, so that our listeners, can 1, learn what's happening, 2, empathize, and 3, put words to action, and hopefully put their empathy to action, and do something, donate, whatever, and we'll get to that. But tell us your experience, please.
Yeah, like you were saying, I wasn't really that worried because originally it was just a tropical storm, and we're just used to having storms so often at this point. It's part of our bread and butter. So I thought it was going to be nothing. And then when we were about to get on the plane to go back to Puerto Rico, it had already, I think, become a Hurricane 1 category storm, which again, it's not a big deal because it's not Maria, which was a category 5, but they had shown that it was going to be really slow moving, which meant that I was going to be on top of the island for a really long time, and it was going to bring a lot of rain. So this was not the type of storm that you're expecting, a lot of gusts of wind that'll tear everything up. The problem with this one was the flooding. So I'm lucky enough that I'm more northeast of the island, so we didn't get hit as badly, but the south and the west and the center of the island as well, a lot of areas that have been already unstable since the passing of Hurricane Maria that were never really able to fix their homes, that the electric grid was already
and the
crap.
earthquakes. We can't forget that there were earthquakes, after Hurricane Maria. So like there's a lot of shit that happened.
So there was a lot of infrastructure issues that never got handled. And then you get massive flooding that could have been maybe avoided by better planification and clearing out of the gutters and, you know, solidifying infrastructure. And it just, it was really, really bad. There's a lot of scary landslides, people losing everything, horrible flooding. And the electric grid is crap. There was an island-wide blackout and they tried to, you know, salvage what was left of it so they could get it back on, but it hasn't. Obviously we have like a private company doing the electricity in Puerto Rico now, which.
But to that point, and not to cut you off, I was reading actually like on my way home, I was reading an article, and because obviously if people know their geography, the Dominican Republic is right after Puerto Rico. So naturally, right, a hurricane that goes through Puerto Rico will probably go through the Dominican Republic, as it was the case. Hurricane Fiona. I was about to say Hurricane Fiona went through the Dominican Republic, but it's interesting because a lot of Puerto Ricans like to give the Dominican Republic a lot of shit. It's like, oh well, you know, we're Puerto Rico so much better, blah blah. But after Hurricane Fiona passed through the Dominican Republic, only 7% of the island lost power. Wow. And Puerto Rico, a colony, this is a colony. I don't care what anyone else says. It's a colony of the most powerful, the richest nation in the face of the earth. Has the worst infrastructure, has the worst electrical grid, the highest prices in electricity in all of the United States, and lost its power. 100% of its power.
They're being held hostage by the United States.
Yeah.
And you know, as you spoke about Maria, it's like, let us not forget what administration we were in at the time. And how things just, I mean, I was ranting, as I'm sure you both have, to your parents or whoever your senior is around.
Right.
Like, I was ranting to my mom like, and it's a colony and this, that, and the taxation, no representation, and this and the electrical grid, and why do we keep like why is it that we have American politicians now still having to have the conversation? But I don't think it's not their fault. Like, it's not AOC's fault that she has to bring up the fact that the wires aren't even underground. That should be something that was taken care of generations ago. But it's negligence. It's utter negligence that is costing people their lives, livelihoods, food. It's a mess. It's utter heinousness of like you took it over and you don't care. So
it's a disaster. And obviously we also have the Fiscal Control Board, which also pushes even more austerity measures onto the island. And obviously it was one of the big reasons for the push for the privatization of the power company, which, you know, privatization, it's kind of a weird thing because a lot of conservatives like to say like, oh, the government shouldn't know anything. It should be, you know, free market and privatize everything. And, you know, in theory, that only works if you have like healthy competition, regulated competition, might I add, because unregulated, we've seen what can happen with that. But when you have competition, sure, things will get better because you want to lower prices and be competitive and be something that people, you know, a service that people want to partake in. But if you're the only guy in town, you can do whatever the hell you want. So that's kind of what's happening. You have like one power company owns everything. And 5 years, what have they done? Our power outages since Maria have actually been worse. Since before, when we had the public company.
Electricity has never been more expensive, and you lose electricity at least once a day, every day.
And they had promised when they signed that contract that electricity, the power bills would not go up in 5 or 10 years, something like that. And they've raised it like how many times? 8 or 10 times since then. So it's just heinous. It's atrocious. And it's one of those things that for me, it's very disheartening because one, you know, you're seeing your place that you're, especially me, I'm in the diaspora. So like I'm out here from the outside, and it's just heartbreaking, right? To just see the place that you had to leave, because I didn't want to leave home. You know, I kind of had to because I didn't have a career there, so I kind of had to leave Puerto Rico. And there's one thing I was talking to my mom about this on the phone the other day. Like, I'm not gonna say 100% because nothing's 100%, but most Puerto Ricans that leave the island do not want to leave. We all love our home. We all love our island, and we want to be there. And we just want to be there with a family in paradise. But it's heartbreaking when you're like outside and you look back and you see, and you're hoping, right? Because you just want things to be better, because you're like, well, maybe if things improve, I can just go back, and you just see.
Yeah.
Not even like,
it's a terrifying proposition to think about the future, and going back to something we talked about, because Nani's there and you left, and then I'm third generation removed from it. My grandmother was the last person that really lived there. My grandmother, who's currently in the other room, like all good Latin people, keeping the matriarchs literally in your house.
Yes.
Literally down the hall. But it's like,
lucky. Some don't want to leave their house. So we'll get to that later.
It was a battle, you can imagine. But I was telling my mom today, I'm like, me and my sister's kids, the next generation after us, my sister's boys, like, I didn't want me to have to do this, and now it might trickle to them, like, to speak about where we came from in as a past tense, as a place that was, instead of as a place that is. Like, it's a very, very scary proposition. Like, we always hear like, oh, climate critical mass, like full breakdown in 40 to 50 years. That's 40 to 50 for large established healthy infrastructure. Like, that is a sliding scale. A 40 to 50 global climate breakdown is like a 10-20 for an island nation, and that's a very scary proposition. So it's just the idea that it like, we'll never see it at its not heyday or glory, because there's always been issues, but it's the idea that the idyllic place that everybody considers as like a cornerstone of like tourism and of a certain type of existence does not exist anymore. And it's frightening, and it's ignorance, because in the same way that like we can make history feel further by putting a photo in black and white, we can make problems seem lesser by never, like, if you Google Puerto Rico right now, what comes up? Tourism photos, like, mostly. And so people that have no idea what's going on don't realize the severity of it unless they Google the actual aftermath of a situation. So it's like negligence, but also like national like propaganda almost that is from being helped. So
I mean, I'm pretty sure there was like a CBS news reporting that
David McDowell.
No.
Oh no!
That put up a map. No, it was like a CBS reporting put up a map, and they put us like underneath Jamaica. Like, Puerto Rico really? Here. It's like, what? You're not even Fox News. You're CBS. You're a little bit more respected. Know where Puerto Rico is on the map.
Aren't they all close? Can we get there by like?
Isn't it all the same thing?
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Aren't they all just natives and in loincloths anyway?
Yeah. No. We canoe, one place to the other in 5 minutes. It's fine. Yeah. Of course.
But it's terrible. And one of the weird things I feel, especially, it's very poignant now, especially since we're talking about Andor, such a big show for Hispanic representation, Latinx representation, and obviously with Diego Luna and Adria Arjona there. You started this month with Pride, right? On the 15th, there's the start of Hispanic Heritage Month, and also we had the Andor premiere. You kind of start with this high, right? Of like being Hispanic and being Latinx and all these things. All of a sudden, like, this week starts and this disaster happens, and you kind of see that radio silence of just like, well, I don't care. I prefer to see some dead white woman in a box that perpetuated colonialism and hasn't done anything. I don't care what anyone says. Well, she's a queen. She had a tough job. No, she didn't. She doesn't have to do anything. Her job is ceremonial. She literally cannot take a position on anything. So how much can someone do when you can't take a position? I'm sorry. Yeah. I know it's always, I feel pain for the family, because
when people are like, oh, but she did a lot. It's like, oh, do you really want to unpack that? Yeah, let's unpack that then. Let's start with the crown. Let's start with how much money was stolen from African nations when you actually analyze what's there. Let's start with the piano that's in Buckingham. Let's start with, like, you don't really want to talk about what she did do. You want to talk about what you think a queen does.
I saw one
have a show for you. It airs Sunday nights on HBO. You can watch that.
Very true. I saw a tweet about the queen saying like, "Oh, the queen, a quiet supporter of LGBTQ rights," and someone quote tweeted it saying,
"Supporter is not a supporter."
Someone quote tweeted it saying, "Yeah, so quiet that she's dead quiet." I was like, "Oh my god, I love Twitter sometimes." But
Twitter,
but really,
is a sport.
But really, you just have to look at like what the Argentinians were reporting about her death, and you will have an idea of what South American, Latin American countries think about the Queen and what the things that she did actually do. So,
well, it's funny because I mean, we were going in one direction, now we're going. That's always happens. But it's a good thread. So let's keep threading that. But it's interesting because I mean, I'm not gonna say obviously, but you'd think that all, and I use all quotation marks, all the Hispanic countries would have kind of that same, obsession with the Spanish royal family that the U.S. has with the British royal family. But no, it's quite the opposite. Like no one, I mean, maybe the bourgeoisie, right? Like in Puerto Rico, that
my grandma used to care.
That. Yeah. It's just like only they care about, King Felipe and all that stuff. It's just like Hispanics are just like, no, well, you colonized us. No, and there shouldn't be no kings or queens. That's why we fought this war. And it's like, bye-bye, we're done with you. We don't care about you. Yeah. And the U.S. is just like, hey, we fought a war against you, but now we love monarchies because we want
bootlicking. The greatest was that the official, and yes, it was the British production, but the West End production of Hamilton put out a statement, like a rest in peace statement. It's like, have you read your show?
Yeah, yes. We were singing that song. I'm not gonna say who was singing it, but we were singing it in Hollywood. It's mocking your monarchs.
It's okay, interesting choice.
But
I mean, Paddington Bear had something to say about it. Corporate accounts must be stopped.
Hey, but we're getting Paddington 3, and Paddington 2 is the Citizen Kane of all movies, actually. No, Citizen Kane is the Paddington 2.
Citizen Kane wishes it was Paddington.
Right. Sorry, Orson Welles. I said it. Sorry. Leave your hate in the comments below. Boost our engagement. Anyway,
it all spends the same.
Yeah. So whatever. But going back to the hurricane. So Nani, how has it been, right? Since you got back, and like obviously you're in the Northeast, so like things happen.
Yeah. So I got lucky. So my biggest problem has been electricity and water. Water always being worse than electricity, obviously. So I haven't, obviously I've seen all the pictures and everything, but I didn't live through the worst parts of it. I know a friend of mine that was taking pictures in front of his house, and he was starting to freak out because it started to look like a river, and was afraid it was like all coming into his home. And there were people that did happen. It came into their homes capsized because the ground couldn't sustain it. People holding up signs saying like, estoy vivo, I'm alive, because people can't get to the actual place where they live. So it's been a horror. And I wasn't expecting this one to be this bad. So it really caught me off guard. And I'm happy that my family's okay. I hope anybody out there that's listening to us that is in Puerto Rico, that their families are also okay. If they haven't been able to get in touch with them, like anything that we can do to help, we're going to try to post legit sites to, send some help. Money,
don't donate to the government.
Anything,
don't donate to the government
because it's really hard to know what sites are legit. So we're going to try to do our due diligence and leave some links for like actual places that will help, because otherwise, they take something off the top every time and it doesn't get enough help. And we just want to help the community also, but we want people to be outspoken about that this is actually happening, just because it's not loud and a lot of people don't say anything and it's not making the main media. It's something that happens, and it's something that's been going on for years, and we've never really completely recuperated. Like every single time, I think now it's 5 years since Maria, and there's always that saying that, oh, every 5 years we're gonna get a bad one, and everybody's been like, don't jinx us that way. And then this one category one did this much devastation. The rest of hurricane season is still ahead of us. I mean, I really hope that we're done for the season, but there's no telling that it is.
I've seen some toxic takes saying like, oh, well, you guys, you live in a hurricane area, so you just have to get used to it. It's just like, that's just a toxic attitude, really, like to take to a group of people that are suffering.
Even a fully established state like Florida, or tell that to the people of Louisiana
with Katrina.
So it's like, you have, if the states that do get the attention of the United States government have that level, how are you going to say
of devastation
to the island that does not? So it's a completely intellectually bankrupt and stupid white person thing to say.
And there's also like this weird disconnect about empathy as a group. That like it's something that I've run into with people, name names, you know who you are, which is a weird thing when they approach you to kind of ask, like, oh, how are things with your friends and family? And for me, it's always like, I'm happy to give this answer because obviously I want my friends and family to be safe and okay. But that's because my friends and family come from thankfully a privileged position where they're in a relative safety and can, be able to manage with despite the circumstances. And I feel that for some people, when I give that answer, it's just like, oh, well, your family and friends are safe. That means I don't have to care anymore because I checked in on you and your people are fine.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so that's why, like, for me, I always try to make a point when I'm talking to people. It's just like, yeah, but like there's hundreds of thousands of people that are not
that are not okay,
that are suffering, that are dying, that are hungry, that need help, that are probably trapped because the road collapsed. And it's just like, just because my friends and family, thanks for caring about me and my friends and family, but also care about everyone else that is not fortunate. And I think that's the important thing we have to do, just like we rally for any other cause that we rally to in all the months that we have a cause for, and people just are, bending over backwards for that. I think we should also have like that enthusiasm and energy for, people that are suffering and need help. So as Nani said, we'll be leaving more links. There's a bunch of links already from Monday, but we'll be leaving more links about where you can donate. We'll try to like organize something, but we'll, like we've been discussing, try to do something that we can cut out the middleman and get straight to the point, but to kind of get the community come together as the Star Wars community has. I did put Podathon, has it done many other times in the past. So please help. And if you can't help, because not everyone is able, just spread awareness, because that is also a way to help. So
go to the sources, go to the Triad of the Force Instagram account, which I joked off air I just rob posts from, but like, do that.
But that's why I do it.
Do that. That's what you
the
should
point.
be doing. If you're, there's a big problem that happens, and this permeates times of tragedy. This permeates world cultures. This permeates pop culture. Permeates every job we ever had. We shame people for saying, I don't really know, and that's okay. There is nothing wrong with saying I don't know.
Right.
There's nothing wrong. Like, if you like, it's, that's what the follow-up should be. When someone asks, like, how are your friends and family doing? And you say, well, they're fine, but we're privileged to be able to say that. Other people are not. The follow-up should be, oh, I don't really know what's going on. Can you tell me? There's nothing wrong with that.
So their follow-up is like, oh, that sucks. Like,
it's like there's a huge lack of intellectual curiosity, which is a big problem.
Well, it's apathy, right?
Yeah, and apathy. Yeah.
It's just like my empathy just comes up to this line because I want to stay within my comfort zone, because that's it.
You want to people want to be seen doing good, and they want you to know that they asked. It doesn't mean that they don't care. I'm sure they do. But if you can't look beyond that was the whole point of I'm not trying to, for people listening, like, this is not a lionization of one politician, but that was the whole thing, that like with the Bernie Sanders, Nina Turner sort of coalition, was that help someone you don't know. And that can be lifted out of their campaign and just applied to life. That's the point. It should be who you don't know.
Right.
I mean, that's don't personally know anybody that was affected in Texas, but we still wanted to support the What Choice fundraiser and the
exactly.
Happened, so,
exactly 100%. I mean, that reminded me of something we were saying when we were doing our retrospective on Lord of the Rings. It's like everyone talks about how everyone wants a Sam in their life to support them, but we were like, no, fuck that. You be someone's Sam. Be someone's Sam. Because it's easy to be selfish and just want that support, but it's a lot harder to be Sam and be that friend that's just like there through thick and thin. So
harder to leap without looking too.
Right.
Which all three hobbits sort of did, like to be able to say, like, Frodo's going, then we're going. I don't know what's going to happen. We know as little about the world as he does. In fact, he might know a little more because he knows Gandalf. We know nothing, but to still be able to say, like, that's where goodness is. You have to go. It's your responsibility to go. Is important.
So, and it's not easy. Like, it's tough for me too. So it's easy to say these things, but putting your words into action is a work in progress always. And I can improve. I'm sure everyone else can improve too. It's just being cognizant of that, and and doing our best, because that's all we can do. But that's I mean, I don't want to say enough of that, because it's not enough of that. We can go forever, but we want to talk about other things too and be a little uplifting and talk about happy things as well.
No,
I'm sure
no
misery,
which is a joke, but like I know we're gonna talk about the premiere experience and everything, but just like spoiler-free disclaimer for Andor. I think I speak for everyone here and for my shows and stuff. It's not gonna make you feel great.
No,
it's gonna make you feel righteous, but it's definitely in the tone of like
it is not a happy show.
Get out there and do it. Like there are cute moments throughout, especially with B2 emo, but it's not. It does not end on a high. There's no so we'll talk about that. But
oh my god, there is.
It's so good.
But before we get into like our Andor reactions, we will talk first about the Andor launch event, because that is something that I still can't believe happened. And for anyone who's listening and or watching who is not aware, it is my duty and responsibility to make you aware that Triad of the Force, as well as like Alden Díaz, were invited to participate and be a part of the Andor launch event in Hollywood, California at the El Capitan Theater. And it was such an incredible opportunity. Thank you to everyone at Disney and Lucasfilm for giving us that surprise. For me, it was just like a birthday gift because my birthday is September 2nd. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But all of a sudden, like, I remember just opening that email at work, and like I couldn't work for the rest of the day. I was just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
This is not something I thought it was going to be. Oh, another round table. That's cool. That's still really awesome. But like to be like, oh, you guys are coming here was something that I didn't expect. It was magical. I don't want to go into the details yet because I want to get like everyone's reaction to like what happened there. Like, Alden, I know you've been doing this for like a little longer time, but how did you feel when you got that email for the red carpet? And actually, was this your red carpet? Your first red carpet as well?
Yeah, it was my first California proper red carpet. I've been fortunate in the past, and whatever word anyone listening wants to, fortunate, blessed, whatever, I use them interchangeably in a very literal sense. I did this. It was not gifted from the sky. But it, there was the whole Mandalorian season 1. They did a simulcast in LA, Chicago, and Miami of the El Capitan premiere. So like I got to see that, but I wasn't there. That's awesome. Galaxy's Edge. Cool. I was lucky to get into Galaxy's Edge before it opened. For that launch event. So that was sort of like my first experience of being part of a Star Wars launch for something, but not
Disneyland or Disney World.
Disney World. So Galaxy's Edge East. Yeah. So West side already opened, but then they did a second opening for East, and they shut. At night it's like 2 days before it opened, and so like that first evening it was like cocktail hour, like around the Falcon, like they had tables and everything, and like it was like very, very, very sweet. Rise of the Resistance wasn't done being built yet, so they walked us into an unfinished ride, which was very cool to see.
Wow. That was really cool. Behind the scenes.
Yeah, I was like standing in the hangar, and they were like, "So a car will take you over there, we'll bring you over here, but it's not
trust us. It's gonna be cool."
Yeah. But this is the first time, red carpet. I've only been to California twice. It was both times were this year.
Oh wow,
same.
Yeah, celebration.
Same.
Did not expect to be traveling there again, and it was.
In such a short amount of time.
It was the quickest turnaround ever. In one day, premiere the next, out the next day.
Next. Nani, what about you? What happened when I text? Did you actually read the email? Did I text you about it first? How the hell? I don't even remember. Everyth's such a haze. I don't remember.
You texted me about it first, and I was at school, and I was like in one of the like common areas, and I started squealing like an idiot, and everybody's like, "What's happening?"
You're like, "I'm a celebrity, bitch."
I'm freaking out. It's like, oh my god! And the first thing. Obviously, class, whatever. And everybody just looks at me. It's a premiere. Fuck class. Because there's no way you're saying no to this, because I wasn't able to go to Celebration because my finals got pushed back. Obviously, I can't skip finals because that's an automatic incomplete. But, a couple days class is not a big deal. So obviously, and then I called Josbando, and immediately he's like, when are we booking passages? Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, what?
And then,
class?
And then
I'm going to.
Because it's like, we only have 2 tickets, babe. So it's like, I don't care that I can't go. I'm still going to Hollywood. So
it's like, I already checked the restaurant I'm going to. I know what I'm doing.
So I couldn't believe it. It was a huge shock, especially for Andor, when we have like this raw new Star Wars that is, I think it's going to revolutionize Disney Plus shows, honestly. So to be invited to this one specifically was a huge deal. The fact that I wasn't able to go to Celebration and meet all these beautiful people that we've been meeting, you know, since we started the podcast, that I hadn't been able to see at all. And it was just, it brought the whole thing to make it like, oh, everything we've been done up to this point has been worth it. And there just makes me excited and hopeful for what's to come. So it was just an incredible experience. Aside from the fact that we got to see it, that we got to sit in El Capitan, which is this amazing old school theater that we need to save these theaters that I'm pretty sure are getting torn down left and right everywhere. And it was just, that was part of it was just being there and the organ and everything. I mean, Goose and I were sitting next, almost cried before the show even started.
It's like church. I mean, like I was telling my mom,
it is.
like watching Star Wars is always great. I could watch it alone. I could have not gotten up and watched these and been the happiest camper.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Watch it with friends. Great. But when you watch it in a room full of people that breathe and bleed it, it's like we don't need to communicate. We just know when to clap, you know, when to stop clapping, you know, when to cheer, you know, when to not cheer. Everybody's sort of like things like, this is the lightest possible like visual spoiler, but this is the first show that confirms the BBY dating system. Like we knew, obviously we knew that in canon material, but you see like BBY5 comes on the screen and everyone was like,
and everyone's like
the electricity in the room for the tiniest things.
I know.
You cannot capture that. You cannot get a moment like people like Diego listing off not just cast members but crew. Every single slide of the end credits got applause. That does not happen outside of a setting that is true, like unadulterated community.
It was I mean, hilarious is the wrong word, but it's definitely magical to see like how all of these things just come together. And like you were saying, it's kind of an unconscious thing because it's not as if like they're handing out a checklist. Everyone's like, okay, here's the applause prompter, and like everyone needs to do this.
It's
osmosis.
It's organic.
Right? Everyone just feels it in the air, and it's such a incredible thing. That's why like all of this Star Wars cynicism online, I just don't get it, because ever since the first time I saw A New Hope and until now, like Star Wars has always been about wonder, about magic, and about like just enjoying it and like talking to your friends about it and like loving it. Like this is the coolest thing ever, and I'm a fucking nerd, but I love being a nerd, and that whole attitude. And to like have people that just like aren't just vibing with it anymore, and then just make a career.
Well, they weren't there
being negative
because the energy inside of that theater
but that's my point. It's like for me, like being in that, and we were talking about this a little bit after the premiere. It's just like the watching the 3 episodes, that was cool. I mean, obviously I love them. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but it was the experience of being one with your friends, 2 with your extended friends that we've met through like all this podcasting community and whatnot, which is incredible to finally see in person, because it's one thing to talk to someone in a box on a computer, and then one thing to be like, oh my god, I can hug you now and enjoy what you've been enjoying for like all these years and months and whatever together. But then also on top of that, to then be in a room with a whole bunch of other nerds that are also enjoying it at that same level. It's just, you feel the love and you feel the passion. It really drowns out like everything else.
We kept saying it was like a coda or an epilogue for Star Wars Celebration.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And like with that in mind, like what I've said to people constantly when they ask what a celebration is like, or an event like this, it's like it's like this subliminal feeling that that any of those people, if you were 5 years old, you would have played together. Like it just would have happened. You just know, like you can't bottle that feeling of being around your people, being around like your unspoken community, and being able to react to things like there's an Aki behind Stellan Skarsgård, and like everyone knows that it's an Aki. It's not just me that knows. That's a really special thing.
There was one thing that I saw, but this was in episode 4, and we can't really talk about spoilers for episode 4 until next week. But I did see like something behind Stellan Skarsgård that I thought was suspicious from a video game. Well, we'll talk about it later.
A video game, you say?
A video game that maybe it's the Force Unleashed 2. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Theoretically, Force Unleashed.
Theoretically. But yeah, enjoying all these things. Is
it was Sam Witwer. It was Sam Witwer. He cameos as Star Killer, and no, he does not. In fact, I wouldn't want to be on the internet if that happened. That would be too much.
That Snyder cut stuff. Anyway, but yeah, for it definitely was like a coda or a continuation, because I remember such a good time hanging out with everybody, especially like hanging out with everybody post celebration at the hotels and whatever, and just having fun and just getting together. And I remember Nanny, Wally, and I were at the hotel lobby just having drinks, and like it was great because everyone just started like trickling in slowly, and it's just like, oh, it's Brian, then it's Chase, and Alden and Tori, and then it's like Alex and Molly, and like everybody, and all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, some of these people, yeah, we've met before, other people we hadn't met at all, but it's just like an immediate click.
I almost had a heart attack when I saw you guys. I almost had a heart attack. Like we met in May, but like I didn't know you'd shown up because I was so into my drink.
Yeah,
you were like 2 booths this way.
I know.
So when I'm
we didn't know that you guys were there.
Like I was freaked out.
Oh, I knew. Like I had seen the back. I'm like, oh, let's do this, and then it was planned. It was meticulously planned.
Killed me. It was so good. Yeah,
we were the loudest people at the
we were definitely the loudest ones. Yeah,
for sure.
But in the best kind of way.
The loudest people there, the loudest people at In-N-Out, the loudest people in a lot of different locations in the Roosevelt lobby. But really, like.
But especially the Roosevelt lobby.
Even people that aren't even like in this Star Wars community, but are in a different Star Wars community. Like I'm not on TikTok. I've never downloaded TikTok once in my life. I like to watch them when they're sent to me by friends. But meeting people that's like, so you do TikTok? Okay, well, I have no idea who you are, but you're great, and like you just now making friends across the different communities.
Right. Yeah.
I am kind of the same. Like I don't watch TikToks at all. I just like have Instagram, so I wait until everything's on Reels. So I am very, very, very behind. So I knew about Darth Choco and a couple other people. So
Choco I knew, but I was like,
hey,
so
I know you.
The
Instagram people, I'm just like, you're real too. But
Choco, Bella Rose, Carly King, Wendy Lee formerly from maybe still with Collider. Just tons of people. Laura Siricool, who writes everywhere, just the best. Like it was just nonstop hitters, just nonstop good people.
A couple other friends too. It's Tony Gilroy, Diego Luna, and Kathleen Kennedy. Who were there. And
Tony.
My boy Tony. Which I'm sorry
Tony
for
A-Cab Gilroy.
Tony. I'm gonna claim him. I think we can officially say he's our friend. You know, we if you have a picture with someone, that means
that's canon.
Daniel Jose Older, I think, wrote about it in Midnight Horizon. Take a picture with someone, they're your friend forever. And he was just chilling at the bar, and we hit it off. So
Tony photo right now.
Expect them either at Ahch-To Radio or Try Out of the Force, or both.
Tony.
Yeah, he was so chill. Like
he's like, look at me with my arms crossed,
just waiting for his drink to get mixed. Yeah. Standing there like a G.
Super nice.
Love that guy. Mm-hmm. Super sweet. And then you met somebody who's handsome and cool.
I don't know. I don't know who should tell that story, because I think it's funnier to tell that story from the outside, because seeing your reaction, which to be fair, I would have had the exact same reaction if I had been you. But it was amazing. Everyone just laughing their ass off. It was incredible. All of us are sitting like at a bar table right in front of the bar, and all of a sudden Nani just starts going. I thought Nani had an aneurysm. So it's like she starts yelling incoherently, and I'm like, what the hell is this? It sounds like
it was not incoherent.
It was very
like clear what I was saying.
I'm like, this is a name. Nani's not forming the words.
When you're doing this, are you telling? Because I'd stepped away. I don't know what I was doing.
I was actually trying to let the table know, because we were like at the corner, and Goose had made the comment like, if you see somebody scream.
Yeah. Yes. But at this point, you have not approached him.
So no. So I had just seen him like coming out, and I'm just like trying to let people know at first. I started really low at first, but obviously started rising as people like are not necessarily realizing what's happening. So I'm like, Diego. And then I just stand up. And then he just like came right at me, because obviously I stood up and I'm like chanting his name.
He looked terrified. I'm not gonna lie to you. He was just like, who is this crazy Latina woman? Like, I've just been like in a room full of white people chilling. I'm ready to get out. And, like,
That said, maybe it made him feel comfortable.
True.
Maybe like, finally
like,
someone.
okay, I'm almost at home.
I mean, it was kind of hilarious because then Molly was like, well, he went like straight at you. So I thought you guys were friends. And I was like, of course not. Of course he doesn't know me.
And there it is. There it is.
So I started talking to him in Spanish and he was super nice. And you could tell that he was in a hurry, but he was incredibly gracious and had a second to listen to me say
kind.
that it was amazing, that I'm so looking forward to the show. And he said, hay que platicar mejor sobre la serie, saying that we should like give promotion to the series and how important it is.
We agree.
And you could tell that he was really in a hurry. And I asked for a picture and he's like, oh, I'm really in a hurry, but yes, just a quick one. And obviously I forgot how my phone worked.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Totally forgot how my phone worked. And here I'm freaking out. Like he said, he's in a hurry. Oh my God, I'm going to piss off Diego Luna. Yeah. But he just waited for my phone to work and took the picture, was incredibly gracious, said, gracias, buenas noches, like very, very, very incredibly kind soul. You could tell just from that small interaction, especially considering that he just had to sit through, the launch, doing the introduction, sitting through the first 3 episodes,
the VIP party,
and doing everything. Press before, probably.
Yeah,
doing press. So they were nonstop press, and then, like I said to you at the bar, I remember the 3 of us talked about it. Like, when you look at like the space poppies, all of them are pretty well attuned to their roles, except him, where he's like, and again, it's not a matter of he works harder because acting, these are all amazing actors, but Jimmy Smits feels like Bale and Pedro feels like Din. He does not feel like Cassian. It's a further jump. And he goes to like a wrathful, brutal place when he plays
because
he
character. Seems so peaceful and nice and all so these, and then you see him his as voice Andor,
is so light and bouncy.
It's a different tone. Everything when you see him as Andor. So that transformation is insane.
He's incredible. He's really, really just a wildly talented person.
Let's just call it. He's gonna get nominated for an Emmy.
As he should. Well, that's a whole other conversation. I'm really angry at like the shafting of sci-fi fantasy in general.
Better Call Saul.
But Saul will at least get the back half next year. But because so will Stranger Things 4 Volume 2 will get the back half next year. But like the Emmys come out and it's like, look, I'm not asking for it to be a Star Wars party. We have the Saturn Awards for sci-fi fantasy, but you're not gonna nominate Ewan for that show. For are you kidding me? That was the best performance he's given as Obi-Wan. Like, you're not gonna nominate. I even think like Tamora Morrison. Like that dude is like his quite like. I can go on a whole rant about this, but like it's just it's.
No, but they got massively snubbed. Yes,
the system is rigged.
Snubbed. Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. It's barely even a system. It's so rigged. But this one, I mean, again, to keep it entirely non-spoiler, it's like, terrifying at moments. Like,
it's raw. It's intense. It's
like I'm trying to dance around certain things, but like by using the trailers. So if you've seen the trailers, there's that moment where Marva, played by Fiona Shaw, the old member from Harry Potter,
was amazing.
Incredible. When she does the whole "That's what a reckoning sounds like," that's only part of a speech. That speech is
that whole scene.
Oh my God, that's chills just thinking about it.
I believe what I was seeing.
I know.
It's
so good. Like, you think it's good from the trailers. It's so much more than you think it is.
Yeah, because I think they've done like such a wonderful job with catering the trailer to only give you like the bare minimum, because you get some cool you get the cool action pieces, you get like cool little dialogue, like, oh, they're so fat and satisfied, which I love that line.
And it's so satisfying when you actually get to hear the line in the show. It's like it's not worn down, it just sounds better when it's like immersed in what's actually happening in the show, when you finally
especially
hear
with
it.
all the
and you can
all
also
the
tell
sound
like,
engineering, it's just elevated.
What's a trailer take and what's not. That's very modern. Like a lot of the time, like No Way Home did that. Like Scooby-Doo, this crap was for the trailers. Scooby-Doo, this shit was for the movies, and it sounded way better in the movie because that's how people talk. So there's a lot of that here, and like there's also a lot of like deceptive editing in the trailers, appropriately deceptive, not in a negative way, but just like the trailers make it seem like way more of an intercut, sort of like we're going to be doing all these stories at once, and that's not the case. There's no Mothma in the first arc. Which
was really surprising, honestly.
Intimate, one place, except for flashbacks. Well, two places, because there's also the other moon where the brothel is. Gets a little saucy. That's all. But
let's not piss off the book people, though.
Look, this is not pointed at.
It's not a slide at the book people. As you can, I love the books. I have all the books.
I got new books. I love the books. But
don't remind me. I keep emailing them. But anyway, we'll talk about it.
But the whole idea of like it comes out that there is implied sex in the show. There's nothing explicit. You could easily show if your child's been watching all of these, they can still watch it. Yeah. But it is implied. You see some leg the next morning, and that's about it. But it's like the fact that got out in an early review. And then all the book people are like, well, actually, in the Rising Storm, it's like, okay, okay, you know what they meant. That there's such a problem with good faith and bad faith.
Yeah,
they did not mean ever in canon.
Right.
Nobody
means
like, that.
We know there's sex in Star Wars. Obviously, Luke and Leia came from somewhere. We know.
Of course.
We know that Anakin and Padme did the deed many times,
and in
we can tell from the Clone Wars.
Brotherhood, Padme lays some game out on Anakin. She's like, open up your gift and it's blankets. I was like, okay.
How many thread what is it, thread count? What's the thread count on these?
What's the thread count?
And you know, she's from Naboo, so you know she's got the good stuff.
Oh, high.
Higher than anyone's ever seen.
Instead of Egyptian cotton, what would it be? Gungan cotton.
That sounds
fine.
I'm not sure I want to lay in maybe let's say Nubian cotton. Where's I got lots of that?
You're gonna buy a cheetah for your husband.
Anyway, that was a bit. That was
We're
done.
Bits now.
We're not gonna.
That's so funny.
But yeah, like after you see like that trailer, you think you know what you think you know, but you don't know, because I remember when the show started, I was just immediately blown away by the cinematography. I mean, it's like this just looks miles above and beyond. Like, because I consider Rogue One the most beautiful. I mean, Last Jedi too, but like for me, like Rogue One feels like the most beautiful Star Wars movie.
Very wide.
But but somehow Andor looks even better, and that's incredible considering that it's a TV show. I mean, I think Disney has done a fantastic job, obviously, with Disney Plus and the production quality of like all of their shows, because they're all like elevated.
And that's everything. That's Marvel. That's all.
Yeah.
Exactly. All of the things that they've done. But like Andor specifically just looks so much better. I don't know if it's the visual effects. I don't know if it's the cinematography. I don't know if it's a combination of both.
Which is amazing too, because when you hear that it's going to be 12 instead of 6 or 8, your brain immediately is like, well, that means less money per episode. So maybe this will be like really small, tiny missions, espionage. You know, it could be all inside of a building. Like, nah, it's not like that. There's sweeping forests, fields.
I got lots of Fellowship of the Ring vibes. You know, if Fellowship of the Ring were a spy thriller with like even all the vistas
because
and everything.
there is massive world building, but there's also the combination of what Alden was saying, that it's also very intimate. So on a lot of other scenes, you're very close, tight in with the characters, with the sounds, with everything that's going on around them. And then the sound editing was incredible.
It's crazy.
Combined with the soundtrack, which we already knew was good from the trailers, but the way they work it through with everything that's happening, and to be able to see it in the big screen.
There is a drum moment at the end.
Yes. Actual drums. I like it.
Insane.
Insane. Insane.
Wow.
I was blown away.
I remember a time thinking like circa Rogue One, because that was the first one that wasn't John Williams. And like that's a specific circumstance, because Giacchino had to do that in like 3 weeks. And it's still
which is a great score.
Yeah, it's still a good score. Solo, I was like, okay, all right, like maybe we can't have completely free of Williams.
Right.
Then Ludwig kicked it into the sun, destroyed it, and was like, not only will I not be like Williams, I'm gonna do something completely different.
And make it work.
Phase of like, and credit to Kevin Kiner too. Someone in the comments was ready to yell at me for not mentioning Kiner. Of course, Clone Wars and Rebels and all of them have always, but they were doing Williams, which is the difference. This is not doing John Williams, and it's not doing Rogue One, and it's not doing Mandalorian.
It's just doing Andor.
Yeah, it's just doing its own musical identity, its own visual identity. The choices that it does in terms of like just the presentation, like I mentioned, how it puts the date on screen, which has always been in reference material, but never in visuals. It also is the first time that they've done almost like Sherlock, when Sherlock and John text, how the text appears on the screen.
Right. Oh my God. I forgot about that almost.
Shows up above this dude's shoulders. So there's like lots of things that it's just playing. It's the font color is different in the credits. It's white, whereas it's usually blue. Mandalorian has yellow. That has white text. There's just
even the intro of when the title comes up, the Andor title. Wait till you see that visual.
You think it's a planet, and then it's
so good. And we were talking about afterwards, because there are flashback scenes, and they're speaking in a completely different language, and they don't have subtitles for it. So I really hope that they keep it subtitled less for the release of the show on Disney Plus. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I felt that it was amazing that you didn't get that subtitles, because it was all about those interactions in between.
It's emotions. You don't need them.
You don't need them. I really hope that they don't add a subtitle, because that was actually one of my favorite things. That's you're in a completely different unknown planet with people speaking, not what, but what's happening in every single scene. And it's a flashback scene that works really well with the show.
Whole flashback sequence is what anchors it. It anchors it into like, yes, there's a very what is very clearly a brothel, even though that's not said and nothing sexy happens. Yes, there is space police dressed in blue that are doing things they shouldn't be doing. Like, yes, there's all these adult things, but whenever the emotions need to be reckoned with, we peel back to these children in nature trying to survive, hoping for more, looking at the sky, seeing a ship. Like, every time that it's like, oh, are we getting away from Star Wars? No, we're still Star Wars. Like, it still comes back every single time that it does something fresh, even when it's like, oh, they absolutely had sex. That is that the characters are still doing Star Wars things. So
well, which is I think like the strength and like what we've talked about ad nauseum, I think, in episodes before, and we talk about it with Marvel too. It's just like at some point, like you have, especially with Star Wars, you had such a wide galaxy and such a big palette to which take from, right, to tell your stories, that we've always wanted to see something that is different and is told from like a different perspective and looks at the galaxy and the storytelling from a different point of view, but it's still inherently Star Wars. And I feel like this is kind of the first show that does that. It's like, we're the spy. I feel like this is the Winter Soldier of the Disney Plus, but it's gonna be maybe a hot take, but I think better, because Winter Soldier, wonderful, it's still kind of a spy thriller, but
you don't want to hear my Winter Soldier takes. I don't dislike it, but Winter Soldier is like, Winter Soldier is not even the best spy thriller in its own canon, let alone another.
Which would be the like in the MCU?
I like Winter Soldier.
Which one?
Black Widow. I like Black Widow a lot more than I like Winter Soldier, which is a hot take. I acknowledge the hotness of that take.
I need to rewatch. I didn't dislike Black Widow, but I didn't blow my mind. Maybe I need to rewatch it.
We'll hang out one
Give
time.
it another.
You can get a commentary track from me.
We can do that one and see. But you know what I'm saying.
But totally, it is the same. Like,
it's still the MCU.
Yes, and I hate, and I know you two do. You two do too. Wow, that was hard to say. You two do as well. The whole idea of like, every time something comes out that we like, we have to compare it to something. It's like, this is not like, to say like it's like, there was some headline, no shade to this writer, I don't know them, but it was like the Hollywood Reporter doing like this is not for the Baby Yoda crowd. Yeah, and it's just like, what? Okay.
What does that even mean? I'm the Baby Yoda crowd.
Like, Revenge of the Sith isn't for the Ewok crowd, but those are still intimately part of the same story. Yeah. So it's like, it doesn't, and also they deal with a lot of the same things. Like, so that's a whole thing. But it's like singing the same song but in a different language. It's like, why are you? It just tells me that you didn't honestly look at both of them. You just want to fight. It's like, if the Mandalorian is something like Iron Man, appropriately, with abs. It's like, this is something like your Winter Soldier. But when when Tony and Steve meet, magic happens. Like, they're still part of the same thing. And so it's just
and Guardians, when Guardians show up, it's still MCU. And even though it's space opera,
like we went from Ragnarok into Infinity War, and that felt like the same guy. And those are entirely different things.
Yeah.
So it's like, let if, and we're not the type of people that are like, if there's no cameos, then it's not connected.
Oh, I hated that reporting, by the way. Oh my God.
That was
we're not gonna name the names, but everyone knows who we're talking about. We know
Easter eggs are not required. Otherwise, it's a terrible show. Excuse me.
Even
but
though
like,
there's a ton of Easter eggs and stuff.
First of all, there are, right?
So
like, let's say, for example, a popular choice, Enfys Nest. People want Enfys Nest to show up really badly, right? And so do I. Let's say Enfys Nest does show up. It's still going to be her, even though the directing is going to be more serious than Solo, which had pulpy cowboy directing, because that's what that movie is. So, but you could still be the person. Like, we've seen now Princess Leia in Last Jedi and Princess Leia in Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is a bubbly little girl. So it's a character.
And she was amazing.
Yeah. So it's ridiculous to do that. Yeah. And it's I mean, there are Easter eggs. I mean, one that we were talking about after, I know Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained and I were talking, like, one of the most clever Easter eggs I've ever experienced is that this show is aware of the fact that the fans had accepted a Cassian backstory because of reference guides. And it makes that backstory the fake cover backstory that he has. Like, there's very light spoilers, but in the show, they say things like, the paper, your profile says you're from Fest. It's like, that's what fans thought. So
but that was the fake background.
Using it against us.
It's so
using
good.
Our knowledge against us.
See, this is why I don't read reference material, because I know it's gonna
because like for years fans have always said, like, all Rogue One says is, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. It does not say the stuff about his parents being separatists and all that. That comes from guides, and we all accepted that. Now we're seeing a different angle, but they found a way to, like, cleverly kind of reconcile them together. Whether or not Fiona Shaw was a separatist remains to be seen, and like what that backstory.
We don't know enough yet about that, but
could still be good. But
it'll be coming in episode 4. We can't say anything about it. So it's just incredible. I can't stop gushing, like, over like how beautiful, one, the show looks, and two, like the pacing of it. I've seen like a lot of people saying it's a slow burn, but I wouldn't call it a slow burn. I would just call it a deliberate pace, because it's a.
I mean, it is a slow burn, but it's a burn that works.
It's an alarm clock, it's an alarm
but that's not
clock.
an insult. Like, that's the thing. Is like, yes, it is, but that's not an insult.
Right.
Slow burn. How many great and amazing films are a slow burn? Like,
amazing. And then you get
decompressed.
And then you get punched in the face with episode 3.
100%.
Well, it's because it's a time bomb. It's an alarm.
It's a pressure cooker. It's so good.
Ticks, and the ticking just gets louder and gets louder until you get to the final part of the arc, and then everyone's ticking. And then, like, the fuse has been set.
I still have chills. I
got chills saying that. I was like,
but it's like, I mean, decompressed storytelling is so 2000s. Like, if you go back to, like, in a good way, you go back to Stan Lee and his, like, Spider-Man comics, and then the Spider-Man comics from like 2000 to now, what Stan would accomplish in one issue now takes 5, because we want to stop and let characters talk and things. If this is not an insult on Jon Favreau, because I love The Mandalorian, but if Favreau was doing Andor, Luthen would have shown up in the first episode, because that moves that more of a like, that's an Indiana Jones pace. That's a pulpy fantasy pace. This show, as it's made by Gilroy, who comes from that type of fiction, it's like Luthen is mentioned in 1, is landing in 2, and they don't meet till
behind.
So it is like stretch everything.
It's playing poker with you, right? It's just like it's got the has its hands, and you got the cards, and you think you're gonna play one card, and it's not the card you're expecting.
And we also know things in advance if there's a certain betrayal that we are privy to way before someone is privy to, that is rightfully angry about it.
And to see how that plays out is so stressful. So there's so much tension throughout from the beginning.
And that's not to say it's not funny, which, like, I think
it's lighthearted.
Buried too. It's got like B2 is like instantly a favorite droid. The Disney era Star Wars droid has been an undefeated streak.
Oh yeah,
there's not a single, from BB-8 all the way to B2 EMO. Everyone in between.
I just want to see K2SO and B2 EMO fight. That's what I want to see. I want a cage match.
K2 in the second season is going to be Yeah, that's gonna be great.
Because I wanted to be kind of like in Love and Thunder, where like Mjolnir and Stormbreaker kind of have a thing.
Original.
I was just like, well, maybe B2 Emo and K2, maybe they have a little
B2's
like,
I thought I was Cassian's boyfriend. Guess not.
Guess not.
K2's just like, you're yesterday's news. There's the
the
door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. We'll see. Hopefully that happens. But that's just my fanfic.
But just
but
just a great character. I don't want to spoil beats with B2 Emo, but they're very funny and very endearing, very sweet. There's funny stuff, just the way Cassian interacts with like his boys in the town that like work in the junkyards and stuff. And there's a
certain character who tries to be a badass, and then
it's very fun. And
I like the
tall alien. It was fun.
And to that point, I think it's time to like not just shift from gushing from the show, but talk. I think the most important part of the show, which is what it's talking about. And I think that was one of the best things about the screening, was when the screening's over, everyone stands up and immediately like two people in the crowd just immediately look at each other. And it's like, hey.
Like literally, like if you could describe, if I could like visually act out the energy, it was like,
yeah, I know.
It was, and I said it in because the social media embargo went up a couple hours later, so everyone was firing off their tweets as we do. And
gotta do it.
The first thing I said was like anti-fascist, anti-class traitor, which is something that often gets overlooked. Like the people that are like, oh, I'm your boyfriend, I'm your girlfriend, whatever. Then they sell out your people. Anti, what was the other thing I said? Anti-fascist, anti-class traitor, I don't know. It's just anti-authoritarianism in general. I mean, like the crux of the first episode is people desperately trying to control their narrative. Cassian does it. The cops do it. The friend jumps in on it. Like, this is what happened on this day. This is what you're gonna say. Like, it's scathing. It's angry. Like, we keep having to say to people, Star Wars is political, and we keep having to say it nicely. Always has been. Go back to the originals. We've all had this conversation 100 times. This show is like, everything before this was the Bernie Sanders meme of, I am once again asking you to understand. This show is the I am no longer asking.
Just accept it. We are political.
But it's for me. I mean, I don't want to say unabashedly, because I feel all of at least George's films were unabashed, especially the prequels. They were unabashed, but they were unabashed in a what would be the right way to say it, in a palatable way. I think, let's put it that way, in a way that's like innocuous enough where you can not notice that he's actually telling you. Yeah, you can tell. You can.
Well, and also because you're getting the
Nixon,
but it's also from the point of view of like the high class, because it's always the royals and the Senate, and it's not
the Jedi
the guy that's working in the junkyard.
Right. Like when things were bad and were intimate and small, it was Jar Jar Binks, but he was still being roped into like
the Senate and the higher positions.
And it's also hard to. A lot of George's stuff was either looking back or predicting forward. So George was looking back on the Second World War for a lot of his stuff, but that wasn't for the people of the 70s. And he's looking forward to things that he rightfully predicted, like, the control example. He makes the Trade Federation in Phantom Menace in 1999. Oh, how he's saying, how effing terrible would it be if a company like that got government power? And then now we're brushing up against that with Amazon. So he was either looking back or being scarily right about future things. Andor is now.
Right.
And like, as Fiona Shaw said, I think she said like a scathing treatise on the Trumpian era. And like, we're only 2 years out of that era, and it is now.
Are we though? We're still, to use the word that I'm loving ever since seeing the episodes. We're still reckoning with the aftermath, and it's not an aftermath. We're still in it, just like COVID. It's not over.
And what's amazing is like just talking about the first arc, because it is very arcy. It feels like a more adult Clone Wars. Like 1 through 3, there's a beginning, middle, end. That. It manages to be terrifying without nary a single stormtrooper. Forget Palpatine, forget Vader, forget Tarkin. These are the cops that licked the bigger boots.
Yeah.
And it shows the trickle down. This is a system force.
Yeah.
So this is the people that are already tiny, but got an inch of power and decided to take a mile and are trying to seize and grow higher. The white armors and stuff haven't even shown up in that first arc. So it really drives things home in the smallest possible way, down to the literal junkyards of one police officer and one dude. It's a very, 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 it could not be more blatant. Like I said after to both of you, like anyone misunderstanding it is trying to.
Yeah.
Or just will. Yeah, it's willful.
It's willful.
They're
not watching the same thing we watched.
They're not watching Star Wars, period. Because George, again, explicitly in the prequels, I mean, he shows how you sow division amongst people that look different, and then you subjugate them, and then you literally whitewash them. That's what stormtroopers are. They're whitewashing. And like I said, Star Wars Celebration, whitewashing, you don't have to wear white armor to be whitewashed. Sometimes that armor, it's on your skin. And it's what's happening in Andor. Yeah, these guys may be wearing blue uniforms, but they wish they were wearing white ones. And because it's that level of class and suppression and aggression. It's like, I am above you, but I have to keep going above. And that's the wonderful thing that I think it's always been discussed about the light versus the dark side, how light is about collaboration and the dark is about backstabbing and trying to, be better than the other person despite the other person. And we get to see that in this show. We get to see like how all these military, police, whatever, even, I mean, this is an episode 4 thing, so I don't know if I can talk about it, but there's a dynamic with Mon Mothma also that you can see those power plays as well happen. And it's just like, oh, there's a lot of depth into all these relationships that at the end of the day, there are relationships, and they're what we're seeing every day in our day-in-day life. And it's really refreshing to see it be done in such a explicit, because for me, it's, it's explicit in this show. A lot of things that we see in media are implicit, but here's just like, here you go. It's
and
like,
to find
here's
like the
picture.
new archetypes in it, because like Star Wars has been around so long and it is so about archetypes and classic tropes that it's hard to find new ones. That's not a criticism. It just is hard to find new ones. And this manages to do a couple of them. Like there is no woman in Star Wars that is like Bix. There just isn't. Like that is like the business owning, like is one of like the hearts of the community. Like you get the hearts of certain families like Hera, but this is somebody who's an institution of her world. There's never the elderly woman like Marva. That's not really a thing. Like you get like Jocasta Nu, but she's more of an obstacle for Obi-Wan in his investigation. So like to see them all placed in these ways, and Luthen, somebody that comes from a different societal like strata that is disgusted by what he's become a part of, that is saying it with no minced words, you're gonna die. Not gonna, like, we're all gonna die. Like this is, we are trying to build a better tomorrow. We're not gonna be a part of it.
What is your manner of dying? Like how do you want your legacy, right? How do you want to be remembered? And like, do you want to just live life?
It's like,
or do you want to make an impact?
Exactly. And there's always been that argument about the impacts between mostly Mothma and Saw, like Rebels does, and in a great way of them clashing. Now it's like, what about somebody in the middle that's like, I have a foot in the Mothma world and a foot in the Saw world, and it's like, I will kill someone, but at the same time I also know how to play the game.
Stellan Skarsgård,
he's so good.
So good,
man.
So good.
He's
so
just
good.
That scene,
Pirates and Mamma Mia, baby. That guy.
He can do anything.
Yes.
And he's such a like outspoken liberal. I love it. But like, there's one scene, I don't know if it's episode 4 or 3. Very, very mild spoiler, but you can see him transform. You see him be one character and also turn into another. I mean, it's the same character, right? But you know what I mean. But
the mask comes off and it's a different mask that put on.
And that's when you know you're seeing a thespian, because it's cinema. That Martin Scorsese. That was it.
It's amazing.
It was real big D energy there. That's all I'm gonna say about it. But it's been incredible. Like obviously we can't talk. I wish we could talk spoilers about it.
In a couple days.
In a couple of days. Oh my god. This Thursday, no, what the hell are we doing? Oh, this Friday we're releasing like our episodes, looking at episodes 1, 2, and 3, where we finally will be able to talk spoilers, and we'll be having our very good friend Mark join the show. So please stay tuned for that. But before we start wrapping up, Alden, we've seen episodes 1 through 4. What?
Right.
Obviously, we've said how much we love them, but what do you expect to see moving forward? Do you expect the show to kind of reset the clock and have a new ticking clock? Do you expect that this is actually a clock that is continue to tick and there's going to be even bigger explosions? What do you hope to see based on this initial reaction?
What's interesting to me is how these first 3, and I fully anticipate these conversations, does this feel like Star Wars or not? And I think that's intentional. And I've given my opinion, which is that it goes up against the fence and then comes back, and then goes against it and then comes back in different ways. But what I think this is Luthen is classic Star Wars coming to this new Star Wars and saying, join us. Because by the time we get to Rogue One, he is a fully respected and integrated into the Yavin 4 family of like the different generals, spies, fulcrums, all that. And what I feel like we're doing is showing us this, not to then like make it less radical, but showing us why they need him. And so to create a radical element at the beginning, I think it's very intentional that we save the Mothma stuff for after that first initial prologue arc, because it's almost like Star Wars is saying to Cassian Andor, hey, we need you. And so I think that the further we get toward that season 2 finale, which we already know what the season 2 finale is, Gilroy has said as much.
What is it?
Gilroy said in an interview, the last shot of season 2, for those of you that don't know, is him getting in the shuttle to the Rings of Kafrene. It's going to go right up into Rogue One.
If you're listening to this podcast, you
know what goes down. He's going to go kill Tivik and then meet Jin, and
he's going to what?
Have a difficult week.
Terrible things for the rebellion. Terrible things.
But the whole build feels like we're doing all this new. Then we'll show Mothma. Then we'll show Saw. We're gonna bring you into Star Wars after we've made you angry, and so that way we can have our new and our old in this. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that episodes 1 through 3 don't have Mothma, don't have Saw, don't have Coruscant, don't have. Like, it's definitely a punch you in the face and then bring you in. Don't worry, Star Wars, baby.
But it's still, I mean, it's still, and I know this is cliche and tropey, but it's still Star Wars in the most Campbellian sense, because I mean, Cassian Andor's character is Cassian Andor, as Stellan says. It's still, the hero's journey. He does the refusal of the call. He has that duality within him. He has to cross a threshold, and the threshold is a spaceship when he goes to like the next planet to like do his thing. So it's still that archetype. It's just placed in a different, it's a different soundtrack, and better cinematography.
That's true. It's the can this be what we want it to be? Romance. The older, instead of a wizard, it's Luthen like coming and doing this, and there's the droid companions, there's the everything. It's why are we here at home? But then combining that with an element of what's going on with the Canary people and like these indigenous children, and there's still a mystery of like, why is it only children? Like, there's lots of things that are still left to be explored. But it is very like, what if like Luke got to leave a nice farm, Ezra got to be picked up by a nice family, Cassian also starts his journey, it just happens to be in hell, which is
like the unfortunate truth of many a migrant. And it's just like that's their reckoning. Again, I'm going to keep using that word because it's awesome. That's the reckoning that they have to deal with throughout their existence in a hostile environment that is not friendly to you. And I think that's a great thing that we're seeing. But Nani, what about you? What do you expect to or hope to see or expect or want from the show based on like these 3, this little arc, these 3 episodes?
I'm loving to see how the rebellion really got started. Not because usually we get to somewhere where it's already kind of somewhat established, and it's Rebels, and it's usually like more wholesome beginnings of what happens. It's nice to see somebody that kind of joined out of anger and revenge and a darker side to eventually, you know, join the quote unquote light side, because there's a lot of grays. I've never felt like the dark or the light are absolutes, and they never should be, especially with the rebellion, especially with what we hear from Andor in Rogue One when he says, I've been in it since I was 6. You have no idea what the things that I have done.
Good scene.
And now to be able to actually see why he feels that way, and to be able to see all these characters toe the line between the dark and the light, and how is it too far this way or too far that way, and what is actually compromising your moral code, what isn't compromising your code. And I'm just really intrigued to see more also from the dark side. There's characters that we haven't been able to see enough, because not all the dark side people are necessarily bad people. They're just, that's what they believe in. They believe that they're doing good. So
they were tricked.
Everyone's a hero in their story.
There's a scale. I mean, that's something that Adam Driver said way before the blow up of the sequels, when he was like first cast. They're like Comic-Con 2015. He said, it's not about good and evil. It's about who thinks they're right. And like, lest we forget, Palpatine did not have a fascist takeover. He was elected. He was given power. And everybody, as Padme will point out to you, clapped. So it's like,
how democracy dies.
That sounds so familiar. Almost.
It's almost like these are about things.
It's verbatim. It's like George Lucas was prescient.
But it's like, to your point, Nani, like there are people that just woke up the next day that just like had jobs. People like Bodhi, you know, that were like, I was a Republic driver. Now I'm okay. Like I still gotta eat. So there's that perspective too. But then there is the all the way this way and that. And you know, I'm a Force guy. I'm a sword and sorcery Star Wars fan. That's always been my jam. That's why I love High Republic. That's why I love Jedi. I love the sequels. But to remove the Force requires the story to then work harder to show that in new ways, because the Force lends itself to the morality play. Without it, you run the risk of, not that this does this, it is in fact very successful, but you run the risk of it's going to become Blade Runner, it's going to become this without the fantasy. But this without the fantasy still finds
it's still there
really clever ways. Like I'm obsessed with B2 Emo. Like, light spoilers for him, but the B2 Emo has a thing about a droid telling a lie, and how that actually is work for a droid to do that, and it actually is not a good thing. And like to put that into droids creates a whole thing. And Gilroy has a fascination with that for sure, because K2 has the programming stuff as well. So like that's fun to explore. So it's smart. Just smart people.
And I have to add like just a little side comment, because I commented when we watched Obi-Wan that I've never thought that lightsabers looked or sounded better. I think this is doing that for blasters. Like
it's hard hitting.
There's the one scene with Kyle Solar's character and Diego Luna, and all of a sudden Diego whips out his blaster, and the blaster just like the mechanism and everything when like he engages it to shoot. I'm just like,
because I feel like for the longest time blasters were kind of treated as like a joke. Oh, they're like, blasters. They're terrible aiming. They're never gonna hit. They didn't feel like real weapons. And in this series, they feel very, dangerous, very real and hard hitting. So I really appreciated that too.
But especially because, like Alden was saying, like you don't have the Force anymore to, you know,
so you need to
block lights, block blasters, so they're not really a threat. Now it's like, no, they'll get you. You need a stim pack, okay? Because you will not do well. So there's real danger, because you have to actually fend for yourself without magical entities that will guide you with plot armor. I mean, I'm saying that in the kindest way possible, but you know what I mean. So it's fascinating. Like I thought Mando was like going like that thing for me. I still love Mando, don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying to disparage, and I don't want to pit shows against the others, because they're all wonderful in their own ways. But like Andor has delivered so much, especially, and we have to make the point, right? Because it's still Hispanic Heritage Month, and to have Andor premiere on the 15th, the start of Hispanic Heritage Month, and have like Diego and Adria Arjona like starring in that show, like two powerful Latinos in powerful Latina roles, and kind of show not just them and them as like brown people in the Star Wars galaxy, but also one, like in Rogue One, have Diego like talking his own accent, and then two, have the whole migrant backstory and the working class
to have them
struggle.
Do their own dubs. How exciting is it?
That was amazing too.
We're gonna be able to, if for those watching that didn't know, if you hit that setting on Disney Plus, much like with Visions, where they had a different cast. This is, part two of your Spanish cast members are them.
You still get Diego.
Yeah, you still
and
get
Adria.
Diego.
And Adria.
To hear that performance is going to be wild. To hear that same rage, to hear that same pain, to hear that same flirtation in the native language is going to be really, really special in a weird way.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Unfortunately, a lot of the times dubs feel like, well, they're dubs. It's like we have to do that. And like sometimes you get a Christoph Waltz that can do like all 7 of his core dubs, but not everyone can do that. So to have that is really special.
We get 2.
yeah.
Which is one more than like usual. I'm just excited for more storytelling. Like this is just, it's like I've always said, more Star Wars is always good. If it doesn't connect with you, then it didn't connect with you. It doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but like we live in the best era possible for Star Wars because we are being fed so well, my friends. Like we just had Obi-Wan, now we're having Andor. Next, we're gonna have Bad Batch season 2.
This year we have
a
majority of the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
only one of those episodes aired in December, and then we had an entire wave of High Republic end or phase.
Yes,
another one is going to begin. The rest of publishing, the other 2 shows, Tales is coming. It's just like
Tales.
My god, I forgot about that.
Tales will happen, then Bad Batch 2 will happen, then Visions 2 will happen. Visions 2, which is going international, and will not just be Japan. I think that'll be awesome. Japan, but like it's like nuts. Like there's an African studio in Visions 2. There's an Irish studio in Vision 2. There's a South American studio in Visions 2. It's like really, it's going to be nuts. So I'm really excited about it.
But everyone that's complaining, it sucks to be you. I'm sorry you can't find joy in your life. And not only that, but we have House of the Dragon. We have the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. It's incredible.
If I had told child me that in 1 week's time,
starting
this week,
and Lord of the Rings,
you would have Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and Marvel.
In the same week,
because we have She-Hulk.
Is nuts.
Yes.
Yep. And they all satisfy me in different ways.
Yes, I agree.
I go to She-Hulk to have fun.
Yes.
I go to Rings of Power to feel like warm. Yeah, I go to House of the Dragon for the tea, the drama, and then I go to Andor for the rage and to feel like an adventure.
Rage, you said that and just reminded me of what was the Speaker of the House a couple of years ago that really liked, he was a Republican that really liked Ryan, what was it?
The guy who wanted to be the vice.
Ryan Paul? Something like that?
Paul Ryan.
There we go.
You had it. Yeah.
One of his favorite
you
bands.
You were mixing like, Rand Paul and Paul Ryan. That's what it was.
Bit of DBC fusion there.
Two assholes, yeah.
It's cut from the same cloth. His favorite band, Rage Against the Machine. And I'm like, my brother, that machine? They're raging against you. You are what's being raged against. You did not listen to the lyrics.
You did. The call is coming from inside the house, Paul.
Yeah. It's like, just turn around.
That's fantastic.
Anyway, we could be talking forever,
and we will.
And we will. Well,
yeah.
Once I sleep a little bit, but we will, throughout the season. But as always, thank you, Alden, for joining us. I mean, so good to see you again. Even though we just saw each, been less than a week. I can't even believe I'm saying this. It's been less than a week since we saw each other. So it's now we have to limit ourselves to a box. But hopefully soon we can all get back together and just hug each other and just sing some Hamilton. And
I'm gonna break out of my box and go into yours. It'll be great.
It'd be great.
It's been awesome, and we're gonna do more Andor, the 3 of us, and with Mo and with everybody throughout the season. So I'm excited about that. I know we were talking off air. I'm gonna have the Triad folks on Ahch-To soon. I'll be back over here whether they invite me or not, because I'm just gonna show
you can just invite yourself too. We'll just the Zoom and you can just
be like, what is this?
Walk in. Okay, we're doing this.
But yeah, I mean the community that we have, we're really fortunate to have. I mean,
very, very. And we'll be with Alex and Molly or at Star Wars Explained, I think next week.
Alex and Molly.
So
I have them for Lord of the Rings. I have this. Everybody's crossing in different ways. The Pink Milk folks and everything. The gay Puerto Rican alliance is one of the greatest things that came out of Celebration.
It's really one, and then it's like that, and then Alex and Molly.
Yeah.
Which is great. We love everybody. Yeah, with that, I think this is like I've been like an incredible episode of like, first some sadness, talking about some real world issues, but lots of fun, reminiscing about fun times among friends and great shows to see and like continue watching. But yeah, Nani, sign us off. You do the best. You do it better than me.
Thank you again, Alden, for joining us. It was fantastic to actually meet you in real person, but it's always good to continue to do the shows. Thank you so much for joining us. We will look forward to talking more about Andor as it continues to be released because we're so excited. But until next time, we are Triad of the Force. You can find us anywhere that podcast can be found. Just search for Triad of the Force and you will find us. We have t-shirts too, and we will leave some links once we vet some good places to donate for Hurricane Fiona.
Speaking of links, I totally forgot. Alden, where can people find you? Because you recently talked to Rian Johnson, and I'm sure everyone's going to want to talk about that. So before completing our sign off, please.
Okay. I don't mind. I don't care at all.
We're so like for us, you're so part of the Triad that it's just like
you were in a groove. No,
your plug is the Triad.
When I say I don't mind, I am not at all being monitored. I really don't. Again, just don't worry about where you can find me. I'm very easy to find. Just if you search Rian Johnson podcast, you'll find that because it's the only one he's done. But if you seriously just head down, whatever Goose and Nani and Mo have provided down below is really what you should be clicking. So if you want to do that, that would be wonderful. If you want to go back to the Make-A-Wish fundraiser, it's still open. You can do that.
16,000, right? Yeah, so far.
16, yeah, almost heading towards 17, which is like really amazing. Somebody very generous who has a very cool job and is very strong in the Force really put us over. But yeah, the floods in Kentucky, the What Choice fundraiser. We're still blacking out Star Wars Eclipse. We are
Amidala Initiative.
Amidala Initiative. Like we are not. You're never done, and you shouldn't be. Which is an important thing. If you ever feel like I did my part, you're wrong. So there's always more parts to do. So yeah, if you want to find me, talk to me. It's easy to do, but yeah, just click those links. That's more important.
Well, until next time, may the Force be with you.